Hi, and welcome to West End Tesla. I had a great talk with the man, the legend himself, Mr. Agile Joe Justice, leading up to my book with Randy Kirk. And I had quite a few people asking me, can we please see that interview? Well, it was not really meant to be a video, but I did record it. So, okay then, let's have a look at this, because he was head at Agile at Tesla. But he has also been working for BMW, and Volkswagen and Toyota, trying to help them become agile. And he also had the Wikispeed company that has a world record in fastest production car. So he knows a thing or two about production and knows the secret sauce inside of Tesla. So I have cut this long talk I had with Joe into two parts. So here are the highlights of my talk with Joe Justice. Because I really think you have opened up, the mind for many people to understand what it is Tesla is doing. We saw Sandy Munro's mind explode of they made 14, iterations on the octovalve in 4 months, and he was blown away. And we were all like, how do they do that? And I really think
it's even faster than that. That's what
Yeah.
Sandy was able to detect with the teardowns. But inside the company, and that was one of the most fun and most exciting things I've ever done, is actually joining a Musk company from the inside. It's even faster because you see changes that people on the outside haven't even detected, at least not yet, happening constantly. So yeah, more than 14 changes to the octave. There's 60 parts introduced every day, including software and controls across Tesla alone. I mean, you add SpaceX to that, and it's more than double. But yeah, 60 parts a day. That's about as much as a traditional manufacturer would introduce every 2 to 3 years during their minor model change cycle. Tesla does that every day.
Wow. That is insane. Yeah, because I think the first time I saw you was you had an interview with some guys about Agile, where you said that when you worked on the Model S, they made like 27 changes in a week.
Yeah.
I think that clip has been shown a lot in the Tesla community. But that is actually how fast they are changing. And actually, I think Elon confirmed it on Twitter as well when he says, yeah, up to 20 changes a day, like a week. Yeah.
He breaks it down into large changes and small changes, and then part changes. There's usually multiple parts in what Elon will call a small change. What Elon calls a small change is even more meaningful. It's something the customer would notice. So if one bracket changes, which happens all the time, Elon wouldn't even call that a small change. It'd be a combination of things that, for example, improves the flow rate around one of the radiuses of an internal tube. And that might be a few assemblies and even a software change that helps calibrate the pumps and then fans potentially around that system. All those together would be a small change. A large change would be like an entirely different charge port and the software that controls that. So Elon thinks in larger chunks, as Elon should. I mean, Elon is essentially at the helm of 5 companies at once. So although Elon is aware of every part change, I mean, it's phenomenal the level of attention that it certainly looks like Elon still continues to give. When Elon talks, he's summarizing sets of changes into like features, kind of.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So, and you have been working with BMW to make them agile, or try to teach them how to be agile. Is that correct?
BMW has some agile pieces already. I mean, they're not an agile native company like Tesla is, but they have some agile pieces already. Same with their suppliers. Bosch has had some agile divisions since working with Tesla more than 10 years ago. But they're not an agile company the way Tesla is.
No.
Now, more than half of a BMW is built by suppliers, more than half. So you could actually really call a 4 Series the Bosch 4 Series, or the Bros 4 Series, or the Continental or Lear 4 Series, and you wouldn't be too far off. Those parts are designed outside of the company, then they're integrated and assembled like puzzle pieces. BMW and most companies of any type are actually more brands and advertising groups and office buildings to manage the brand. A lot of the design, in fact, the majority of the design and production and supply chain management is pushed onto other companies. So the challenge is how to really even have a fast, rapid conversation. This is why when Tesla has something like the octovalve that spans across several different systems and disciplines, that's so challenging for a company like BMW or Skoda or almost anyone, because that would be different suppliers that never talk to each other. And in fact, the parent company, for example, BMW, wouldn't want them to talk together because then they might take over BMW, right? Or make their own legitimate competitor. So that's the challenge. but it's very natural for a fully agile company, and Tesla's been fully agile since they began, and they knew they had to be to keep growing.
Yeah, because I think you also said in one of your lectures that Elon has really become good at saying what it is, and it's the pace of innovation. And I really think that is starting to make sense to me with the aspect of that they have set up their factories with the production cells so they can make these take out these parts of the production cell, as you have talked about in your lectures as well. And they can implement them immediately, also because it has the automated checking of the car, that the car checks itself together with the factory, and that pretty much makes changes cost zero.
Yeah.
And that is kind of, if you can't do that, you can't keep up with what Tesla is doing, and that's the pace of innovation. Is that correctly understood?
Man, I don't think this is as understood as it would be helpful if people did. I mean, truly, the speed of change Tesla does in right about a day in terms of product evolution what basically everybody else, including the other automotive startups, do about every 2 to 3 years. And when Musk talks about humans have trouble understanding an exponential curve, that's part of what Elon is trying to say. I mean, Elon's been trying to, all our patents are belong to you. Elon, for example, really is trying to outsource, trying to give away the recipe to succeed, saying, please, other companies, make awesome, sustainable products to advance the sustainable energy evolution that's happening now. And they're just not doing it. And luckily, Elon hasn't given up. I mean, you've heard Elon hasn't given up hope. None of the Tesla board has. And there's more than 110,000 very talented people in Tesla now. So I don't want to only say Elon, but Elon's very, very visible.
Yeah.
Saying, let's help everyone. Let's help other companies. This is part of why I get to teach hardware agile globally, because the mindset is, please make relevant products as fast as you can. But these companies are not. I mean, when you have an innovation pace daily that truly is similar in scope to everyone else every 2 to 3 years, how many days until other products are just silly? Just truly silly. And to some people, that point's already been passed. I mean, some people would say, I would never buy another car or solar panel or battery pack. Some people would already. And that number continues to grow. By the current trend, the Model Y will be the most sold passenger vehicle in the world next year, like period, end of sentence of any type. So it looks like that is the trend. And it's that compounding exponential rise of all that compounded innovation, because it does appear to be true. Pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. And this is not well understood.
No. I think that's actually a very great point. That in 5 years' time they have made 5,000 changes to their product and the others, because I also have written down like even if the other guys come up with a huge innovation, like they can get their electric car to go 50% longer,
Yeah.
awesome, and BMW go out and reveal this to the world and say, wow, look what we have. But it will take 5 to 7 years before we see that in the car. Is that, or
At
how fast
least,
would
at
they
least.
be able to do it? At least,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So these development cycles, I try to be kind and say a major model change is 5 to 7 years. That's actually offset. There's 2 or more parallel development work streams that are offset by right about 50%. The actual new model creation time is more around 10 years.
Okay.
Um, for most companies, for a major model change, the large cycle, and they're offset. So halfway through the production cycle of the first model, the next model development starts,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
For most companies, because it is really slow when you work with waterfall phase gate approvals and funding approvals.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so that also, because why is it that the others can't do this? But I also think it's because, like you have talked about, they have no budget, they have no target, they have no goal, just to improve, what they have. And if you have a budget, because I think many people can actually relate to this from their own company, whatever they might be in. I have experienced it myself in the company. I had a great idea and I thought, let's talk to my manager, and he talked to his boss, and because he get excited about it and like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and we go to the boss and she said, yeah, but not this year because it's not in the budget. So it's delayed at least 1 year before the idea can get into the next year budget if you have a yearly budget. And I think you talked about Volkswagen having just put down, maybe that was a year ago, put down a 9 year budget.
9 years,
9
yeah.
year. Does that mean they don't make huge changes within the next 9 years?
They can't without a special out of bounds approval from the board. So
Mm,
that means you have to get your boss's boss so excited that they'll put their reputation on the line to present this out of bounds as essentially an emergency maneuver.
yeah,
And then, I mean, people are human, right? So then it's the personalities that make up the Porsche family and the Pierce family have
yeah,
to like it enough to basically cancel the current budget and rebuild it out of sequence, which they don't want to do. Now,
yeah.
the advantage of that, of these long cycles, is it's very easy to for governments to understand you.
Mm,
So if you're trying to be very political, which most large companies are, having a slow, predictable cycle helps you align with different party groups politically and even endorse candidates over time. And they can say, for the length of my term and campaign process, I understand what you're likely going to be doing, company,
yeah,
right? And that's part of the reason Musk has had so much trouble with politics, because Musk is so fast
yeah,
that Musk isn't waiting for a candidate that Musk has groomed and paid through going through the lower ranks of civil service to get up to be their candidate. And then that will make their play for their labor group and their engineering group and their supply chain advocacy group. Musk doesn't wait for any of that. Musk doesn't wait.
mm,
And Tesla is worth, again, today, as much as the next 10 competitors combined. So we can see which approach wins financially and in terms of pace of innovation and in terms of company growth. So it's almost funny how so many companies will choose to be so slow in order to embrace an equally slow political system. Now,
mm,
luckily, there's a few countries where the political system is actually extremely fast. And not many, but there are some. And those companies very actively lobby to support Tesla. And you can see those are the countries that already have the highest percentage of, for example, EV sales. Not that electric vehicles are the only leading indicator of progress, but they're A1, they're a leading indicator. And those companies have a very high percentage of EV sales. And you can see they also have shorter term limits, more fast approval processes through zoning, permitting, and government in general. And it's reflected in their populace. But that's way more than enough about me. You've got a book in the works, right? Can
Yes.
we hear about this magic?
Yeah.
I'm keenly excited.
Yeah. Randy Kirk, that has written the Elon Musk Method book, contacted me if I wanted to co-author a book. And I thought, well, I'm not a very good writer, but but if you can help me, I will be more than happy to. It sounds really interesting, and what a journey to take me on. So yeah, very thankful for that. And we really wanted to have, a piece of Agile in there, because I think this is so something people don't understand, because they don't nerd out about Tesla and how they build their cars, and people just see the cars and say, that's nice, but it's not like Mercedes or whatever. So they still think that they will win at the end, the old legacy automakers, because they're so big and blah blah blah. But I really don't think this Agile thing of Tesla is appreciated and understood, because if you haven't heard Joe Justice, you just don't know. Because even if you listen to Sandy Monroe, it's he get the pace of innovation, because he's like, it's the pace of a thought pretty much. And but he doesn't probably understand, if he haven't seen your videos, how they're doing it, because he was like, how do they even do this? This is unheard of in the car industry. So we were like, we have to get a piece of Agile in here, and I really wanted to get you in the book, because I think we owe Joe Justice a lot of praise for understanding this part of the factory, because it really opened up my mind when I heard you talk about it. Especially you, I think one of the first you have done a lot of interviews. The first one I saw was the one with Aliando, and he's.
He asked such interesting questions, just absolutely
Yes.
fun.
I think he really got opened up the can of of Agile inside of Tesla and what they were doing. We were like, what cells? What the hell is he talking about? Like, now it makes sense. And then we started to. So I really wanted to get you into the book, and also have face to face here, almost get approval to put you in the book, and give you some
It
shout
is
outs.
my honor to be part of your book. It is my honor to support your book. It is my honor to contribute through you to your book. And I'll say, in terms of nerding out, getting to actually have an actionable understanding of how to do this, the Agile hardware stuff in concept is super simple. Make it really cheap and less frustrating to change. Like the story you'd said, you had a good idea, and even the people you were working with thought it was a good idea. They supported it, and it didn't fit in the budget. Maybe next year. Well, what does that do to your enthusiasm and everyone's enthusiasm who just supported you, right?
Yeah.
That's a really important aspect. And when Musk talks about, not only Musk, but also Musk talks about, it's really about respecting the worker's time. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about lean takt times. He's talking about, if someone has a good idea, the number of seconds between having that good idea and that car being tested, homologated, and sold, and a customer enjoying that idea, all of those seconds are waste. And you attack those like it's your worst enemy, with passion and vigor, and with an enthusiastic team. And anything that would prevent or even slow down or discourage a team from self-organizing around knocking out seconds between that good idea and it in the customer's hands, that's your work, is removing those frustrations. And it ends up affecting management, because now management is different, and it ends up affecting the physical structure of manufacturing, and physically how robots are configured, and how people physically work, and how logistics work. Explaining what it's become is pretty interesting. I don't think that many people understand. I don't know if I can say it well. When I talk about how the plant is truly three-dimensional, like a modern 3D processing chip, your manufacturing cell, which is also design, and that alone already shakes people a lot usually, and test, but its part doesn't flow out in a line, right? It can go forward, it can go back, it can go left, right, back, left, back, right, and side to side, but it can also go up and down and at an angle. And it truly is used that way, is engineered that way. So you see this three-dimensional flow when you're in any of the Tesla facilities, even the ones that have had to be retrofitted like Fremont, and especially when you go to Giga Texas, it's a three-dimensional flow. Well, that is pretty a lot for someone who thinks in terms of single one-piece continuous flow to take on.
Line,
and that's just the physicality. I mean, then there's the team management practices. And if you're used to annual performance reviews and hitting your goals and managing to the metrics that were set 18 months before by some people playing golf in another building that never did your job. And then we talk about what's going on in the Musk companies where you don't have an annual performance review. No one cares. Your title, if you even have one, is irrelevant. And it's simply self-organizing around the bottleneck and trying to be as enthusiastic, energetic, and happy about that as possible. Most people really have trouble even imagining that. And so that's a whole story on its own. But the core of it is pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. So what does that imply about human resources? What does that imply about factory layouts? What does that imply about design approvals? What does that imply about coaching? What does that imply about employee health and fitness and employee insurance plans and LGBTQ endorsements? Interestingly, it affects all of these things.
Yeah, because I think the empowerment that Tesla gives to all its employees, I have a hard time seeing Volkswagen or BMW or any of the old guys doing that, because that is changing the culture for sure, and that's probably one of the toughest thing to change in a company. Do you think anybody will take this approach?
I do think everybody will take this approach.
I think actually, sorry to interrupt you, but I think you have actually said that Tesla is, I think I wrote it down, but the future of work.
Yeah.
How we work in the future. So at some point, probably, but when do you think this? Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, it's that exponential growth curve, right? There's a popular anime from years and years ago in manga called Fist of the North Star, and I actually never even saw it, but this tagline is super famous. He's this martial artist, and it's drawn. So these people are drawn with shoulders like 7 times as wide as their heads. You know, it's very cool, but absolutely, physically impossible. And his line, super famous line, he's fighting someone and hits their pressure points. Hits them in just the right spots with like jackhammer force, and then says 1, 2, 3, but in Japanese, hitotsu futatsu mitsu, and then he says, "You're already dead. Omae wa mou shinderu." And that's the thing. Like, you've been hit so much that you actually don't even feel it yet. You still think you're on your feet. You're already dead. Like, it's this point of this exponential curve. When does it take for a company to realize it's already dead? And then how does it behave once it even realizes? Do they do a hiring freeze, or they're like, well, we're already dead, so let's keep the hiring going until we just, have to lay everybody out? Or what do? Do they wait for the government and labor unions to save them 2-3 times first? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Some companies will really flirt with death, and they'll pivot. But there's to me, more important next step to that story, which is working in the Musk companies is a lot more fun than I've ever had anywhere. It's very intense. It's also not for everybody. So if it's the future of work, how do you make the future of work for everybody? Because the future of work that's not for everybody is not actually yet the future of work. Right?
How do we make that sustainable?
And I think that's your next book, or maybe an afterwards to point the way, or that this is a really important story. It's my current passion topic. I'm prototyping with different companies now. Yeah, this is important. Like, what do you do if you're, well, I'll put a really personal note on it. My wife has two grandmothers. They're both 90, like 92 and 93. And uh, they both farm. They grew up organic farming. So like they reach down and find the bugs themselves, break the bugs in half, throw them over their shoulders. Like that's what they do in the morning. They have permanently hunched from doing that for basically their whole life. They're wonderful, loving people. And both of them say, I'm ready to go heaven. I'm ready to go to heaven whenever it happens. Like they're done. This is super common. And for some people in their 20s, they're like, I'm kind of done. Where's the sense of purpose, right? How do you have sense of purpose for people who don't fit? For example, in the Musk companies or in that future of work, why do people many times feel they don't have value to give until they're a certain age and past a certain age, or if they're not in their prime, or if they have some digestive issue and they're just not that energetic after they eat. And they're like, well, I guess I'm just not compatible with a high intensity company. Like, what do you do? That the future of work needs to really lovingly take advantage of people in their 90s if they want to contribute. Like, what's the fantastic experience and value that those people have? And it's there. So how to take advantage of it? How to take advantage of kids' energy and creativity. If a company needs to wait until you're 24 for you to enter, that's a phenomenal and bizarre waste. And if a company wants to throw you in the really intense positions until you're 30, and then say, okay, now we need to get you into management because you're actually a little too slow to be. If that's what a company thinks, it's missing the benefit of humanity and all life, digital and plant and animal and other. So there's this opportunity to make the future society that space deserves, especially as we're in this lifetime quite likely expanding beyond Earth. So now is our chance. We're still in the one seed planet, right? To try to get this as evolved as we can before it fractures out. If you dig the Foundation series, which Elon recommends highly, the Foundation sci-fi series, Foundation and Empire, etc. Earth was long ago, and it's spread out so far that other people are like, was there once a central original planet? And they're not sure anymore. And then we think there was, but we don't know where it was. And groups have lost contact. Well, that's a very likely good conclusion for humanity to spread that out. So right now we have the chance to get as far as we can in what language means, in what currency means. And this is what Musk is taking on. What truth means, what governance, if anything, actually means, what labor means. And a piece of it that I'm trying to advance is business methods, project management, how to run a company, the HR aspects, the financial aspects, what budgeting means, especially I've been trying to clarify more recently for myself and for other people to try to get that better. So when it expands out among the stars, it works for people not just in their absolute fit, most prime, highest intensity time of their life, which arguably is who would have the easiest time in a Musk company. Now, I did work with people in their 70s who were awesome. So it can happen. But they were extremely intense people in their 70s. What about people in their 70s that are kind of tired a lot?
Yeah.
Let's make sure we have a company process that has a really welcoming place for them to be valuable.
Yeah, because right now it feels like you have to, because I think you also talked about that you don't even have time to celebrate that you made something new change, because you do it every day. It's like, yeah, we made it. Yeah, but we made it better. Okay, great, awesome. And on you go. But that empowerment also kind of gives you that celebration, because like we just talked about with the budget, if you have an idea and you can put it on before 9 years in Volkswagen, I would be, demotivated like crazy. But to have that empowerment will motivate me to continue. So you have both sides of that. You don't really have the time to celebrate, but you have the empowerment to actually make the changes. And I think in the end, that is probably the most fun. as you said, is the most fun place you have worked.
I really felt like I was in a giant Lego set all day.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so bizarrely fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
So
I really hope governments do to avoid a lot of unnecessary pain is create government-funded testing organizations that if you think of homologation approvals globally, all around the world in all different markets, like a checkout stand, and say you're
yeah,
in a really busy store, maybe a grocery store or something, but at a really busy time, there's long lines. That's kind of how government approvals often are.
yeah,
And what the governments all around the world can do pretty easily is add a lot more checkout lines and update them. I mean, right now it's like crank registers with bells on them and they're counting out pennies by hand, right? So we
yeah,
can get to, maybe not even contactless payments yet, but at least auto change machines, and then eventually contactless payment. That concept where the idea is anyone anywhere in the world should be able to bring an airplane or a car and in less than an hour know if it is fully flight approved or driving approved. And honestly, there's very few reasons now in this time that it should take more than a few seconds.
yeah,
And that's what Tesla has built internally. So they've essentially proved that in rockets and in cars and trucks. So the tech can exist. And a government's job ultimately would be to provide approval or not in the shortest, fastest amount of time. And if they want innovation, it's for free.
yeah,
And I mean, there should never be more than a 24-hour wait for the motivation reasons that you and I both just talked about.
yeah,
And this, whichever trade organization or piece of the planet does that first, will be the innovation corridor for the entire planet.
yeah,
So that's the real opportunity. So if people want to save BMW, and BMW is awesome and doing its best to save itself. So I'm not trying to make a case against them. But if people want to support that, they want to be the good people for these types of companies, that's what you want to do. You want to have immediate, free, informative, and standing approvals. If it's approved, it's approved. You can go sell it. We're not going to sue you later for that part. I mean, if we find out you were cheating on emissions or something later, that's different. But the approval stands. As of
yeah,
that date, it was approved. That is what unblocks innovation for all these companies. That will then allow their agile transformation to make sense.
yeah. That also in lines with what I think the bottleneck is going to be for EV adoption and so on is getting more mines online right now, and that can take years to get approval for. I can't remember what it was Elon talked about, but he said like it took 4 years to get. No, that was actually chargers to put up a charging station somewhere in California, and it took them Malibu Beach took them 4 years to get approval to put up a charging station. Like, that is a bottleneck for innovation right there. I think that's a line with what you're saying here.
What's awesome about the Tesla teams is the day approval comes, because you don't know when it's going to come, right? You've been waiting for years typically. The day it comes, the chargers are installed, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to react. That day you came in, you didn't know you were going to go install, like lay pipe in the ground. Like it's dirty work.
Yeah.
Chargers, but the permit came in. Do it now. So you go, and you thought you were a software developer. The permit came. This is the most important thing. You're like, okay.
Yeah. And is it you talked about when you get the job at Tesla, you get not a phone, but your phone gets a lot of apps that maybe Tesla has made and some third parties apps as well. Do everybody know everything about the companies through those apps? Can they see where the bottleneck is, or how does that work?
That's the goal, and I think Tesla's apps really do it. So I'll say that the softwares get updated multiple times a day. It just keeps changing and getting better. But yes, that's what the apps do. They make it visible to everyone. Now, some people do just come in and think, Well, I got a job. I'm here to put stuff together. And well, yeah, I got some stuff on my phone. And it might take them a few weeks to understand what's going on. I've seen that. But a lot of people come in very highly motivated and already extremely expectant of what's going on. And in their first minutes in the factory, they're in the apps, understanding how those are working. They're also on monitors everywhere. So you can't not see the information, even if your battery dies or if your phone breaks. But to interact with these things, there are tablets on pedestals, like chest high pedestals all around. But most of the time it's your phone, just because that's so immediate.
Yeah. Okay. So Agile and Agile at Tesla are two very different things, I feel, like what you're teaching in Agile. But you have also said that Agile E or Agile Europe could teach Tesla some things. What are the missing pieces of Agile that you think Tesla could learn?
To get the answer for that question, well, you have to wait until part 2 of this interview, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you want to dive deeper into this and learn a lot more about Elon Musk companies, don't forget to buy my book, The Elon Musk Mission: How to Make the Future Awesome. Link down in the description below. But until next time, take care out there and be nice.